Tonight shattered by one of the worst mass shootings in Canadian history. The shock and sorrow for families in Tumbler Ridge.
Hold your kids tight. Tell them you love them every day. You never know. You never know.
What we're learning about the lives cut tragically short.
Within minutes, an individual confirmed to be the shooter was located deceased with what appeared to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Who police say was behind the killings, plus what they're revealing about the suspect's prior interactions with law enforcement. And a global show of solidarity.
This morning, parents, grandparents, sisters, brothers in Tumbler Ridge will wake up without someone they love. The nation mourns with you.
How the tragedy has triggered messages of support far beyond Canada.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening. There is no way to make sense of the horror in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia. But there are new details tonight about what led to one of Canada's worst mass shootings. Dozens gathering tonight near the school for a vigil to honor the victims. Tomorrow, BC declaring a day of mourning. Tumbler Ridge has a population of just 2,400 people. This is the school where the shooting took place. It has about 160 students from grades 7 to 12. Right next door, the local medical clinic where about 25 people were treated. And a short walk down the road is the community center where parents desperately waited for information. Then, less than a kilometer from the high school, the local RCMP detachment. RCMP revealing today the shooting left 9 people dead, including the suspect. An 18-year-old they say was born as a biological male and self-identified as female. We have extensive coverage tonight from CTV's Judy Trinh in Ottawa. And standing by in Tumbler Ridge, Kathy Lee and BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson, who leads us off.
This is devastating not only to our family, but to so many other families.
A heartbroken couple clutch a photo of their daughter, Kylie Smith, who didn't live to see her 13th birthday.
She was just a beautiful soul. She's a light in our family. She loved art and anime. She wanted to go to school in Toronto. And we just loved her so much.
Kylie, a grade 7 student, was shot and killed at school in the violence that began early Tuesday afternoon. The community first got wind of it when an alert was sent out, warning an active shooter may be in the area. Students at Tumbler Ridge Secondary were put in lockdown.
It was about 30 minutes into the class and the lockdown alarm went off. It's very different from every single other alarm. And Miss Steely was going down the halls telling us all to close the doors, so we closed the doors, locked them.
When RCMP arrived at the school, they encountered devastation. 6 victims were found dead, a 39-year-old female educator, 3 female 12-year-old students, including Kylie Smith, and 2 male students ages 12 and 13. 27 others were injured, including 2 who were airlifted to hospital. One of them is Maya Edmonds, whose family says she was shot in the head and is in critical condition. Police say the suspect, 18-year-old Jesse Van Rootselaar, was found at the school dead of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Van Rootselaar lived in town and police say identified as a woman but was born biologically male. RCMP confirmed the suspect's 39-year-old mother, Jennifer Strang, and 11-year-old stepbrother Emmett were shot first at the family home before Van Rootselaar moved on to the school. A total of 9 people are dead, most children, an immeasurable loss for Tumbler Ridge and grieving families struggling in the earliest hours of a lifetime of grief.
We live here because these things don't happen.
Hold your kids tight. Tell them you love them every day. You never know. You never know.
They live here because these things don't happen. Now that it somehow has, we are seeing the people of Tumbler Ridge try to hold each other up and use their collective strength to cope as the community now turns to the unthinkable task of planning funerals and celebrations of life for victims as young as 11. Omar?
Just devastating. Andrew Johnson in Tumbler Ridge tonight. Andrew, thank you. People in the small community are asking two central questions: how this happened and why. CTV's Kathy Lee on new details about the suspected shooter.
The police tape, the flowers, a closed-off road in front of Tumbler Ridge Secondary School. The marks of tragedy are everywhere in this small northeastern BC community.
My heart is just broken today.
Kyle McKenzie moved to the town of 2400 less than a year ago. Tuesday's school shooting, impossible to comprehend.
My granddaughter and grandson go to this school.
He and everyone here want answers. Today, RCMP revealing more about 18-year-old James Vanderbeek.
Jesse was born as a biological male. Approximately 6 years ago, began to transition to female.
She dropped out of school 4 years ago and was known to police. Officers have been called to the family home, now also a crime scene, multiple times for mental health concerns, and say Rutsalar was apprehended in the past.
So they bring them to a clinician, there's assessments done, maybe held overnight, and a decision's made whether or not they're safe to be released, safe to themselves and safe to community members.
At this point in the investigation, 2 firearms, a long gun and a modified handgun, were found.
Determining the origin of these firearms and what role they played in the shootings remains a significant part of the active and ongoing investigation.
With no clear motive or a suspect to question, police are interviewing friends and family, looking for warning signs.
They will look at the mental health calls. They will look at relationships. They will look at diaries, journals, online presence, all of that to try, and the emphasis is on try, to figure out what happened.
As officers continue their work, police are asking people to refrain from speculating about a motive in the shooting, saying that it's still very early in the investigation. Omar.
CTV's Kathy Lee also in Tumbler Ridge tonight. Kathy, thank you. World leaders are expressing sadness, condemning the shooting, and sending condolences to the community. King Charles posting this message. In such a closely connected town, every child's name will be known and every family will be a neighbor. We can only begin to imagine the appalling shadow that has now descended across Tumbler Ridge. And our hearts go out to all those whose lives have been so shattered by this senseless act of brutal violence. Condolences also coming in from world leaders, including Britain's Keir Starmer, France's Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Ukraine's President Zelensky, and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Nothing from Donald Trump himself, but the U.S. ambassador to Canada posted, "Our hearts and prayers are with the community of Tumbler Ridge and all of British Columbia today." Prime Minister Mark Carney canceled travel plans to the Munich Security Conference to stay in Ottawa, where the flags on Parliament Hill are at half-mast tonight. It's a reminder of how gun violence has impacted communities across the country. CTV's senior correspondent Judy Trinh reports from Ottawa.
The maple leaf at half-mast, a pall over Parliament after the school shooting in Tumbler Ridge.
Parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters began this day as their first day on earth without someone they loved dearly. What happened has left our nation in shock.
The tragedy was marked by a moment of silence in the House of Commons, and the grief was felt across party lines.
As a father, I can't even imagine the phone calls that parents might have received. I can't imagine the heartache and hell that they're living through at this moment.
MPs are grappling with how the scale of the tragedy will be magnified in a town of 2,400 people.
This violence unfolded at a school, a place meant to nurture and protect our children.
The scourge of gun violence cuts deeper for some MPs. Just hours after the mass shooting in BC, another tragedy unfolded in Quebec. On Kitigan-Zibi First Nation, a father killed his 2 children, then shot himself.
To lose 2 children like that is just an unbelievable thing.
For others, it brings back painful memories. A decade ago, in La Loche, a teenage gunman killed 4 people. Buckley Belanger was a provincial politician at the time.
The community is going to have a tough time moving forward. A lot of questions.
Scars remain from the Cole Polytechnique 37 years later, but healing is possible. And lessons can be learned again, says this survivor.
Just for example, in 1989, we were not talking about mental health, and we are now.
Mass shootings are defined as incidents where more than 3 people are shot. According to data from Statistics Canada, since the year 2000, there have been 80 mass shootings in Canada. Omar.
All right, Judy, thank you. And we are going to take you live now to Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, where the Premier of BC is speaking right now. Let's listen in.
I've only been in town for maybe about an hour and a half or 2 hours now. I've seen 1/1000th of what the community is dealing with here. And I can tell you that this is an incredibly strong community. Every single person I've spoken to, from Dustin, the fire chief, to the lead RCMP investigators, to people in the community, everybody's worried about somebody else. Every single person has said, well, just make sure you're looking after this group of people. No one is focusing on themselves here. Everybody is reaching out to support someone else in this community right now. And it's also a community that's clearly in shock. The full extent of what has happened is not sunk in. And there are going to be some long days, weeks, and months ahead.
The Premier of British Columbia, David Eby, speaking to reporters there in Tumbler Ridge, the pain visible on his face, speaking there about the resilience of the community. Well, the shooting in Tumbler Ridge is among the worst mass casualty events in recent Canadian history. The deadliest was in Nova Scotia in 2020, when a gunman who at times posed as a police officer killed 22 people over a 13-hour rampage. In Montreal in 1989, a gunman killed 14 students, all women, before taking his own life at École Polytechnique. That's the worst school shooting, now followed by Tumbler Ridge, with 8 people dead, plus the shooter. The tragedy has hit home for many parents across the country who might be concerned about their own children's safety. CTV's Heather Wright takes a look at what schools are doing and discussing.
There are roughly 15,000 public schools in Canada with varying degrees of security systems in place. Today, many parents and students, though, wondering, is their school safe?
The answer is yes. Public schools remain safe across this country.
Alan Campbell is the president of the Canadian School Boards Association and says provinces and territories all have safe school measures in place that include lockdown procedures. And while it's still too early to know exactly what happened at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School yesterday, school boards will be looking for any lessons that might help them improve school safety. Campbell says that could include locking all school doors during the day, which is done in most places, but not everywhere. School boards may also choose to do more drills during the year.
The minimum requirement is that schools are having lockdown drills and the like at least twice per school year. You know, is there a possible response to this event that sees that frequency increasing? I think it's probably a reasonable thing to expect that in some jurisdictions those conversations will happen.
Other conversations happening include difficult questions being asked by kids and teens.
We're not used to hearing about like a high school shooting in Canada, and so it does make us, threaten our security and our safety.
Dr. Rebecca Calais-Riddell is a clinical psychologist and says when explaining the shooting to kids, the most important thing is to make them feel safe.
So keeping it, to a sentence that people were hurt, but there were a lot of brave people. And so with young kids, you want to kind of get in and get out and end with safety.
Dr. Riddell also suggests answering questions honestly, but limiting details that might be too much for a young person to handle. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
Earlier in the broadcast, Judy Trinh mentioned tragedy also struck Western Quebec. Here's some more details. Police say a father allegedly shot his 2 children in a suspected murder-suicide. The alleged incident happened in the Kitiganzibi First Nation community about 2 hours north of Ottawa. Officers found the 41-year-old and his children aged 10 and 12 inside their home.
Upon arrival, one of the 3 individuals had died and the other 2 were transported to the hospital where they were pronounced dead.
Young children whose life was ahead of them are lost, and there was not much we could do to help because there was no signal put out that there was a problem.
Police are now working to piece together what led to the incident. A neighbor told CTV News the father was very private and kept to himself for years. Coming up, heated testimony.
I'm not going to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
How the U.S. Attorney General is firing back at questions over the Epstein files. Plus, how Democrats and some Republicans are taking a stand against Trump's tariffs on Canada. Six Republicans defy the White House, joining Democrats in voting against Trump's tariffs on Canada.
The joint resolution is passed.
The House voted 219-11 in favor of the resolution aimed at terminating the fentanyl emergency Trump invoked last year before imposing tariffs on Canadian imports. The measure is largely symbolic, though it could ultimately be vetoed by the president. And Trump posted this tonight, saying Canada has taken advantage of the U.S. on trade for many years. They are among the worst in the world to deal with, especially as it relates to our northern border. Tariffs make a win for us easy. A fiery showdown on Capitol Hill with Jeffrey Epstein survivors watching. The U.S. Attorney General faced blistering questions over how the Justice Department handled the release of the files. Here's CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbin.
Facing questions about her handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files, this was never going to be easy for the U.S. Attorney General.
I have spent my entire career fighting for victims, and I will continue to do so.
After releasing 3 million documents, critics accused Bondi's Justice Department of doing a sloppy job, from exposing survivors' privacy, failing to redact nude photos of victims, to allegations of protecting rich and powerful men, and scrubbing President Donald Trump's name from documents.
Please raise your hands.
And to Epstein survivors in the room, one Democrat demanded this of Bondi.
Will you turn to them now and apologize for what your Department of Justice has put them through? And I will reclaim my time.
Mr. Chairman, the gentlelady reclaimed her time. I'm not going to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
At times, the hearing was more like a shouting match.
I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me.
Yeah,
anything.
I did tell you because we saw what you did in the Senate.
You're a lawyer, not even a lawyer.
As Bondi defended her department and the president, the Republican who helped spearhead the files release, accusing the Trump administration of a cover-up.
Because this is bigger than Watergate. This cover-up spans decades, and you are responsible for this portion of it.
And with no real answers, survivors say they are still fighting for justice.
The people who have harmed us, they are hidden, while survivors have been exposed. This is not protection. This is betrayal.
Knowing the president was likely watching, Bondi defended the administration, but did say there are pending investigations into individuals who might have conspired with Epstein. Omar?
All right, Joy, thank you. Authorities detained and have since released a person of interest in the investigation looking into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. The man was arrested in southern Arizona during a traffic stop, but after several hours in custody, he was released without being charged. The individual says he was just a delivery driver.
I'll try to clear my name. I didn't do anything. I hope they get the suspect, because I'm not it.
The FBI is asking for the public's help to identify the masked and armed individual spotted at Guthrie's home on the morning she disappeared. Fans of the 90s teen drama Dawson's Creek are mourning the loss of James Vanderbeek.
Joy, listen to me. If we are truly meant to be, then we will find our way back to each other. It's as simple as that.
Vanderbeek led a generation on an emotional roller coaster as Dawson Leary. He also starred in the high school football classic Varsity Blues. The father of 6 died at the age of 48 after a battle with colorectal cancer. His wife posting that he met his final days with courage, faith, and grace. Still ahead, why Canada's speed skaters are speaking out at the Winter Games. Canada was back on the podium today at the Milan Cortina Olympics. Figure skaters Piper Gillies and Paul Poirier finished third in ice dancing and will take home a bronze medal, bringing Canada's total up to 4 medals overall. But Canada's success on Olympic ice is also coming with challenges. Short track speed skaters have talked about facing a tricky rink. Here's CTV's weekend anchor, Heather Butts.
Fresh off their silver medal win in the mixed team relay, these short track speed skaters relieved their hard work paid off. And while there's excitement, there's also disappointment in the ice conditions athletes are facing.
Yeah, honestly, it's really bad. There was so many falls, and it's probably the worst ice of the year we've had.
A world champion in the 1,000-meter Stephen Dubois crashed during the qualifying round, leading to an early exit in his individual race.
At the games, it's always hard. They have to manage with the ice, the figure skating and the short track, and it's really not the same ice that we like. We have different opinions about it.
Some Team USA skaters also blaming the soft ice for a number of falls. Ice temperature varies depending on discipline. Figure skating ice is typically warmer and softer. Hockey ice cold and hard. Speed skating is typically coldest, generating the most speed. During the Olympics, figure skating and short track have traditionally shared a venue, requiring quick condition changes. We put the quality concern to Olympic officials.
Is this something you're looking into?
We are aware of very few issues, said this Olympic official, pointing to ice masters who he says check conditions constantly, claiming they have received compliments on the quality of field of play. Canada's equipment technician says it's up to athletes to adapt to the changing conditions.
Every athlete has to kind of work with it, so it seems fair for everyone. But sometimes it feels a bit unfair when you give your best and it's the ice that doesn't hold under you.
Dubois said he hopes crews will do a better job in the next few days, but now they know what to expect, and Canada has already managed it well, claiming that silver medal in the mixed team relay. Heather Butts, CTV News, Milan.
Still ahead, how a community has united in their grief. What happened in Tumbler Ridge directly impacted the small BC community, but it was an act of horror that sent shockwaves across the country, shaking it to its very core. For any student and parent, an unimaginable nightmare. Our thoughts are with everyone in Tumbler Ridge tonight. Good night.
These kids were lost before they got to become teenagers. So let's put their pictures up, please, and remember them, not this murderer. Hold your kids tight. Tell them you love them every day. You never know. You never know.